Thank you.
Hi, how you doing? To be honest, I didn't expect to be this much of a turnout. Because when the first group came in, I was like, oh, that's not it. Let's go ahead and start. But then more people came in, I was like, oh. Okay, so I'm your moderator for this event. My name is Karen. I'm the host of Earth Station Boo. We're our core podcast. And I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves.
Hey guys, my name is Michael Collins. I am a theory prognosticator and dad joke enthusiast for the Fandom Hybrid podcast. We do fantasy, con culture, and all kinds of things on our podcast.
My name is Anthony Liggins. I'm also a co-host of the Fandom Hybrid podcast.
Hi, my name is Lisa Harrison, and I'm the co-host of the Friends in Fiction official book club. And I'm also a correspondent for Nice Girls TV, and I have to say, I am so excited to see so many sinners in this room.
Hi, my name is Hanako M. I am the creator and host of the aforementioned Fandom Hybrid podcast. This is my 17th DragonCon, my 15th year as a panelist. And this makes me so happy. You guys do not understand.
Hey, this is not fair. This is my 25th DragonCon.
Nobody
Bragger.
My name is Jotham R. I am a research scientist at the University of Chicago, cell biologist. I'm also an author. I have my debut novel was a psychological sci-fi thriller. I just had a horror short story published in an anthology, Chicago Horror Stories. And then I also combine those two loves in the podcast that I co-host, Rabbit Hole of Research, where we explore the science in pop culture, horror, sci-fi, fantasy. And this was my first DragonCon.
Wow, this is your first DragonCon? Yay! Okay, so there's probably gonna be a lot of questions. If y'all do have any questions, my lovely Shannon is right there. Let's go ahead and go to her. If you have some questions for the panelists about the movie Sinners. So let's get our initial thoughts about the movie. Michael, you're right next to me.
I'm not usually a horror fan, but I absolutely love this movie. I love the things that is said about love. I love the things that is said about music being a connective force with people, and like the performances were outstanding to me. Though the way that they made Michael B. Jordan seem to actually be right next to himself, and passing himself a cigarette still sticks in my mind. Like how, yeah. But I really enjoyed it, especially like picking out the little things, like watching the music scene over and over again and picking out different things every time I see it, and just like. It's incredible to me. And yeah, the movie was it's probably my favorite movie I've seen this year.
I really like the movie. Everything Mike said. For me, the movie is like an onion. Like there's so many layers to it, and every time I watch it, it's something different. It started out as a fun kind of horror action movie. Then it turned into like this study in blues music, and then it turned into this cultural thing. And the more you watch it, the more things I see. And one thing, if anyone listens to our podcast knows about me, is I like layered things. Like things that really get me going are things that have multiple layers to it. And this is one of the very few movies I've watched that had so many layers. And I'm still learning more and more about the movie every day.
I agree. I saw the film, I think 3 times in the theater, and I saw it in 4DX, 70 millimeter, and IMAX. And then I saw it at home. And it's like every time I watch it, I find something different. It's brilliant, top to bottom, the music, the acting, and like the scene with the cigarette.
that one scene alone could be broken down in a film class, like how
yeah.
they got that perfect shot, and just the details, what Ryan Coogler did to make sure that it was so perfect. It is definitely the best movie I've seen, and I think just saying that it's a horror film is not giving it the justice it deserves, because it's spiritual. I'm sure so many people, I cried. The vampires, everything. It's just fantastic. And every time I watch it, I find something different that I missed the other time.
So I enjoyed it for all of the reasons mentioned before, but also as a multiracial woman, the culturalism in this film was just it really made me emotional, because looking at so many, you have this one situation and you're looking at it from so many different aspects, so many different, points of view. I think that was probably one of the most brilliant things about this film, is that you really could look at everyone's point of view, and whether you agreed with it or not, you could understand where they were coming from based on what their background was, or based on the way they were raised, or that sort of thing. So yeah, that was like a really important thing for me.
Yeah, I agree with everything the panelists said, and I'll just add that coming at it from a writer perspective and storytelling perspective, it's one of these things where, I always say, in sci-fi and in horror, you do have spaces to kind of explore culture, explore trauma, kind of put that out there. And I'm a huge fan of horror movies. So when I went into this, I actually went in a little blind, I should say. I didn't see many trailers. So I went in really cold. And so when vampires showed up, like in my head, the storyteller in my head was like, there's probably vampires in this, I think. It's like, oh, yeah, I see it coming. But then when it really happened, and then kind of all of the vampire lore that went in that, and then how they used it, and then actually tethering that to kind of cultural things like being invited into someone's home and things like that. I thought about my own childhood. They kind of like, I don't go in people's houses. Like even they're like, just come right in. I still ring the doorbell. It's like kind of a very taught behavior. When I saw that, it was exciting, and one of these things that felt personal and connected, and like Hanako was saying, just everybody could take something out of that. There's a lot of culture in there, and the music kind of tethered it together. So yeah, it was excellent. I agree, one of the best movies that I've seen in a bit.
Yeah, I have to say it's actually one of the best Black cinemas I've seen in a long while as a person who studied African American studies. I'm actually an African American studies minor, and I took film class, and my professor was like, "Hey, we need to talk about this." So the title "Sinners." How does the title challenge the idea of what makes someone a sinner?
I think that just looking at the Smokestack twins, it's like from what they've done, from what Smoke has gone through with losing a child, what Stack goes through pushing Mary away in order to save her, but not being able to say, like, I'm trying to save you from getting killed, because if we're seen together, that's basically a sin in that time of the South, is being interracially seen together with another race. So the thing is, when a lot of people think they know what a sin is, but it varies depending on your outlook on life, and your outlook on racial issues, political issues, and things like that. Your prejudice drives what you think is a sin.
For me, I go back to the opening scene with his father, Sammy's father, telling him.
Okay, speaking of opening scene real quick, I thought the woman said sinner, not Sammy. So you played it back again. I was like, oh, that's Sammy.
Yeah, it goes back to that where he basically calls him out on it, and he's basically calling everyone associated with him, they're all sinners. And to me, that's what the title is about. It's about that group of people. That it's not necessarily, not to get too religious, but not necessarily a bad thing, but they're just different. He wasn't doing anything that was going to hurt anyone else. they were just out having a good time. That's how they were labeled. So.
I think it definitely shows how we all sin, we all fall short. That Slim comes to mind for me because he drank the liquor and the corn liquor, but he used that as a way to cope with the pain and PTSD of seeing his friend get lynched and dealing with the racial issues that he dealt with. So it was like he used the liquor, which could be looked at as sin, to bury those feelings. But then he used his blues music as a way to express his truth. So I think any character you pick, you can find the sin within them. And that's why it's so good to see it 42 times, because otherwise you're going to miss something.
Yeah, I think that word sinner, it's kind of like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. And I think depending on the way that you were raised or depending on whatever your personal beliefs are, that word can have different connotations. But I think one of the things about this film is, again, you get to see it multifaceted. Like, what is a sin to you, or what a sin is to you, may not be a sin to another person. And I think one of the things that this film does is it really gives us a chance to kind of explore what that is for other people. Because, like you said, for Sammy's father, the blues music or that kind of music in and of itself is a sin. And the fact that his son is playing it, he's like, okay, the devil's going to catch up to you. Well, what does that really mean? And it's kind of like what can be destruction in the eyes of one person can be salvation in the eyes of another. So I think this film really kind of explores those things and how it relates to the other people.
Yeah, indeed. And I think one thing that the word sinner is in there, it was somewhat weaponized, if you think of it that way. There's kind of other viewpoint that when we disagree with something, or we want to teach, someone not to do something, then you kind of assign, a term or that behavior, and that's sinful. You kind of go to that. And so you saw that a lot in there, where as they were talking about, behaviors, in particular behaviors that one person didn't like or appreciate, then they are in the sinner, and that perspective of that person's viewpoint. So I think that's.
And kind of piggybacking off of what Hanako said, he chose the title Sinners very intentionally, and sometimes I can't tell if it's a statement or a title. If it had a period, I'd say for Sinners. Is he talking about the people in the movie? Is he talking about us? Like, what does he mean by sinners? It could have been called anything else, but it was very intentional.
I mean, there are a lot of examples of sin in it too. I mean, there are 2 instances of adultery. There are people stealing. There's Smoke shooting somebody in the butt. And I mean, there are a whole lot of things in there that can be considered sins. And again, it's Ryan Coogler layering and leveling sin and showing what people consider a high level of sin or a low level of sin. I mean, even the vampire was killing people but bringing them back. So it's like there are a lot of levels to it.
But like Lisa said, though, it depends, because the drinking and the smoking was therapy for the PTSD.
Yeah.
So,
and just like with the adultery, I mean, think about it. This is 1930s. Both of those women were married against their will to other people. Like, these are not people that they chose. So it's kind of like, if you look at it in what they were doing, yes, considered adultery, but they were pursuing something for themselves. I mean, think about it. Mary was married off because they wanted to try to erase the part of, blackness that was in her character. For Perline, she was probably sold to her husband as a wife, so it's kind of like, yeah, in I guess biblical terms, those will be considered sins. But if you're thinking about the person, like, if I'm forced to marry somebody against my will, and I have one instance to take some happiness, I may do that, because you don't think, okay, well, this is going to be a one-time thing. I will go back to my life, and I will do what I'm supposed to do, what I'm duty bound to do. But it just so happens that in this instance, those things kind of caught up with them because of the situation. But again, all in the eye of the beholder.
And that is very true. There are themes of religion in the movie, and do you think that sinners comment on how faith can be twisted into a tool of control?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
The sinners comment on how faith can be twisted into a tool of control.
I take it you guys agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel like y'all have something to say.
But yeah, I mean, there are tons of instances of it, like not even in this movie, but like in slavery times when they literally rewrote the Bible to control slaves and to show them that to write the Bible in terms where they teach that first of all, they don't teach the slaves to read because then they can read for themselves, but they teach them that look, you are meant to be slaves by changing a book. So it's like, of course, there's like a lot of like holding down to that.
Repeat the question one more time. I don't want to get in trouble.
Oh, you don't want to get in trouble?
No.
Okay, the sinners comment on how faith can be twisted into a tool of control.
Just go ahead and say it.
That's
That is a loaded question. Honestly, anything can be twisted into a means of faith. Just happens to be one of those things that preys on hopes and beliefs in people. And in the wrong hands, faith can be a very powerful motivator to get people to do things they necessarily don't want to do or want to do. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely something that in the wrong hands can be, because like, okay, let's look at it from Remick, right? Like, he, in his eyes, he wanted everyone to be together and everyone we'll all be together, we'll be alive together forever. And it was like a full thing of everyone being together in his way. That was kind of control to try to get everyone. And I don't think he felt like he was doing anything wrong. And that could have been his fate. So it's like, it's how you see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to kind of agree. I think religion has always been used as a form of control with people, especially, I hate to say, especially when it comes to Black people. You know, and I think that the film causes us to really explore that, especially in light of now you have a lot of people who are, especially people of color, who are moving away from basic Christianity and going into other religions or other spiritual movements, things that come from our ancestors. And I think this film really allows you to explore that and also makes you question that. And it just depends. Like I don't consider myself a believer. I've been in church before, so I've been on both sides of the spectrum. And so I feel like I have a little bit more of an open mind when it comes to those things. But a lot of people, especially if you've been drilled into a certain religion or a certain belief system from the time you were a child all the way till now, I think it really makes you question what it is that you think about this particular word or the behavior that we see.
And piggybacking on all that,
You might have to eat the mic.
piggybacking on that a little bit is that, religion, everyone mentioned biblical religion, but people have different religions and different beliefs. And so through the movie, there was a lot of controlling factors. Some of that was money, some of that was lust, greed. And so I started thinking about the 7 deadly sins even. So before that, where as you go through, you can find aspects and everyone kind of going down that path. And you see, and you're like, no, stop, you're headed the wrong way. And almost you had the larger controlling of religion, but I think then you had all these little personal religions that they believed in. They believed that money could free them. They believed that, they could find love in the place. Music would be freeing. So, but they were kind of being bound by those things at the same time. So, it's kind of a push-pull. I think the Onion comment made earlier, I think that's, very true. And you kind of see that there also.
Yeah, coming from a dual religion house is very eye-opening for me when I was, came up with this question. So I was like, 'cause my mom was a Buddhist, my dad, was Baptist. So being raised like that and trying to find your way without being twisted is kind of hard because my dad's a diehard Baptist, Southern Baptist. Oh, but he decided, along with my mom, let them explore, let them find out for themselves.
That's really good because I hate to say, a lot of Black families that they don't do that. It's basically, okay, this is how we are, and this is what you're gonna do, and it's
You
very.
have to get up
I guess
to
because
church.
my dad was in the Air Force, my mom's from Thailand, and so she kind of runs the house. But speaking of Remick and his whole idea of a perfect, utopian whatever, his system was not that sustainable because he was just turning everybody, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, that's their fault for sending everybody outside and getting it.
But they didn't know.
Instead of letting them in, they were letting them out.
I mean, yeah, like if there was a vampire outside right now, but y'all gonna stay here with us, and we're gonna be right here talking about sinners while they wait to feed on us. I'm not letting you out of here because I can't fight through that. But apparently you had a question.
We have two.
Oh, okay.
First question is, many online creators have warned against evil in the movie and its dangers to your soul, etc. How do you feel about this in regards to religion and horror and how it's usually brought up? How they're both.
In Black movies, where it's like, oh, it's evil. Don't watch it. Oh, and it's like they try to convince us not to watch it.
You talking about it as the movie Sinners being evil?
Like, you go to this book, there's a ton of content creators saying the Lord told them you should not watch Sinners. It's gonna do this to your soul, blah, blah, blah. And it's one of those things because it makes people scared. First off, it scares people off from watching the movie, which it's a horror movie about vampires. Like, and it's about racism. Like, of course it's scary, but like, why is that why is that team the soul? You know what I mean? There's so many other things that change the soul. Why is this the thing? And it always happens a lot with Black movies and Black creators do that. I mean, it also happens with a lot of Black music. They say Black music is the devil's music. So I think because they're very closed-minded and they don't want people to have fun. They don't want people to explore themselves. Okay.
And half of the people that make those comments haven't watched the movie, and half of them have, and they enjoyed it, and then they go on and say things like that. I just turn a blind eye.
I think
Yeah.
it's. Oh, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say Lisa's right because the more we do this podcast thing, the more I pay attention to content creators. I've learned over the last couple of years that there are people who will just say and do things for clicks. I'm not talking about clout, I'm just talking about clicks. Like they say these stupid things that sound very controversial, very terrible because, it gets people to pay attention to them and they get some clicks and then we talk about them and they get more people coming to their page and they make more money. I'm a huge Star Wars fan and people hate Jedi now because the content creators were around saying Jedi are terrible. And now they make tons of money because they got everyone thinking Jedi are terrible. So this is one of those things that goes back. What do you say to get people to go to church? Oh, that music is the devil. We can save you. So they get you to come to church and then they take your money. So I've never had a problem. My issue has always been organized religion. I'm a spiritual person. I have beliefs. I believe in God. I'm just not a big church going person because I think institutions are corrupt. I just believe that. And that's one of the more corrupt institutions is organized church. I'm sorry, my bad.
I think it's interesting too. I literally just got off of a panel about the depiction of witches in genre media, and we did bring vampires and other creatures into it. And I think it's interesting that people have that kind of take because I mean, there's some of us, like I have friends in this panel, like most of us, we met through Harry Potter. And even back then, Harry Potter, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, you can't read that because it's going to make you turn to witchcraft. And I'm like, what does that say about my critical thinking skills that you think a fictionalized depiction of a monster would make me go into this type of lifestyle? Like even back when I was doing the whole church thing or whatever, I never had that issue. It's like I expect people to be intelligent enough to read and do their research about certain things. And if you feel like that is something that will drive you to do evil or to commit sins or whatever, then you just may not need to be reading it or watching it. But it's one of those things where when I hear people say that, oh, that's of the devil, that's gonna make you do this, and I'm like, I'm so sorry that you're weak in spirit. I am not. Really. Like, I'm so sorry. I've been reading Stephen King since I was 14. I've never had the inkling to go murder anybody, or I haven't seen visions, or I haven't been pulled into a portrait that takes me to another land. So I don't get it. I really don't.
The more you told me not to watch or read something, the more likely I will.
I mean, it tethers to that controlling aspect, right? We can look at cultural history, D&D. I mean, that was, at the time when that came out, people said, oh, it's going to lead you into, kind of witchcraft, things like that. Rap music, when it came out, it was going to taint everyone's mind, and you're going to go out and, kill everyone and sling, crack or whatever. So you had this thing where it's controlling. Like, can we actually go at it? And you see something, especially something that is gaining, has a message you may or may not like, and as that kind of spreads through society and the zeitgeist picks up on that, then it's kind of, you have the detractors, mentioned earlier, that will come out against that and then try to control a narrative, and then also try to build their base, right? Because if you can now segregate everyone and kind of feed off of that, then now you can build your little counter movement to that, which,
Well, real quick. Strong-minded people will want to take care of weak-minded people, and the best way to do that is to tell them that's bad, this is good, do this. And if you're not strong enough to look at this and say and question things, then you're going to be taken advantage of. And that's how a lot of religion. I mean, that's how a lot of people who take advantage of people through religion work. It's like they'll tell you things. They'll start playing rock and roll records backwards to make you kind of hear things. I mean, this is the whole thing. Like, okay, I'm old. Back in the 80s, like you would play records back. Like Northern Bison does tells you to smoke marijuana when you play it backwards, and it's like why are you doing? But it's like they're trying to tell you, don't listen to this, listen to this. So it's like there's always something cool.
Another piece of that is the fact that people like to project onto other people. And so one of the things that works about horror, I have like two things going on at the same time. So the first thing is the projection thing. People want to absolve themselves of the things that they do and the guilt that they feel. So if you listen to rap music is making you do things, then I'm doing these things or I did these things because I listen to rap music. So it absolves me of my responsibility. And I think that's what not all of it, but that's a part of it too, is you have a group of people who are looking to absolve themselves by projecting onto you that the reason why you're acting the way you are is you want to watch the movie Sinners. Because if that happened to you, then that's why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. It's out of my control. I bring this up because at Monsteromicon we did a panel on horror, and we talked about how the things, there's external and internal things. That's why for me, this movie isn't as horrifying as like The Exorcist. Because The Exorcist is internal. It's demonic possession is internal. Vampires is external. So we look at these things and how we're motivated to do things. So it's easy for us to say, they made me do it. What is one of the powers of a vampire? It's to seduce you and to get you to do things that you don't normally do. I've absolved myself of any guilt Mary, it's her fault all this happened to her. But she was seduced by an external force that made her do it. So that's a part of why people do these things to us or say these things to us, because it's easy for them to say, yeah, I'm this way because somebody made me this way, not because I'm just born this way.
Yeah,
Okay,
and yeah, piggybacking off of that, it is a reflection, I think. You know, having something else or having something external to blame for the things that you do, when it's like, really, that could have been in your personality all the time. That could be something that you thought about, something that you wanted to do, and now you're using this thing as an excuse to go out and do it. And then, I mean, and you see this, no offense, you see this with church folk all the time. The devil made me do it. The devil made me do it. Well, no, you do have some sort of self-control, do you not? Or are you, again, so weak of spirit that you can't control yourself and say, hey, this is a bad thing, I'm not going to do it. But no, you do it and you indulge and sometimes overindulge because you have that external factor to blame it on.
You get that
Yeah.
that feeling where you have I lost my train of thought a little bit. Go ahead.
Okay, before we ask another question, so I don't consider this a true horror movie.
Yeah.
What was more horrific? Was it the supernatural element of Remick, or was it the racism and oppression and assimilation that was going on?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, actually, it's like the racism in it. Like there was like the first part where everybody rolled their eyes when you said the Klan don't exist, and it's like, but it's like everybody knew. And then when Remick confirmed it by telling him the whole plan that he was going to come back and kill them, it's like the racism is kind of subversive. It's just like in the town where the Chinese couple they had business with white people on one side of the street and black people on the other side of the street. It's not necessarily horror. It's just showing you the way it is. It's not as horrific as getting your throat torn out, but it's still there, and it's like it's still in the back of your mind. But it's not really like thrown at you.
I definitely feel that the everyday violence of surviving white supremacy is the villain in this film. Like Smoke so Smoke wasn't prepared. Like they're not prepared for vampires. Nobody knew vampires were there. But when he knew those Klansmen were coming for him at the end, that man was prepared. And he took them down, and it was satisfying. That was not horror to me. It was satisfying.
No, it was
because
definitely 100%.
But it's just, again, the onion and the layers. But for me, the racism, the white supremacy, that was scarier to me than the vampires, especially his whole sweet vampires. We're all together.
Yeah, I think the same thing. The racism, I think for me, you know, you have the Ku Klux Klan and then you have everybody else. And it's like, we knew very early on with the KKK, with, what's his name? We knew that this whole little deal wasn't going to be on the up and up. You knew something was going to come after that. But then after that, with the different communities, even though they're different, you kind of see a bit of a fellowship between them because it's them, you know, them against the Ku Klux Klan. You see the way that Bo and his wife kind of embraced the twins. It's like they were longtime friends and there was no kind of animosity there. When you had the Native Americans come in, they were trying to save the white people from the vampire. And, you know, it was one of those things where it wasn't necessarily this group against this group against this group. It was like all of us against them as far as the KKK. And I'm kind of with Lisa when he came through with those guns. I was in the movie theater cheering because I was like, you know, and people always try to make it like this when the topic of race comes up. When we talk about Black oppression and white people, of course, we're not talking about all white people. But there is a certain group of people that if they were to get gunned down in 1930s with a machine gun, I would not complain about.
Again, it's satisfying.
I think overall, it kind of goes back to that idea of control. And horror movies, we get the blood and the gore and things, but this kind of idea that, the owner came up, you're possessed, you have now lost your own self to something else. And that's the horrifying part. And if we, use that, kind of the metaphor there, kind of looking at it, the analogy is essentially slavery was that loss of self, loss of culture,
Yeah.
and you move forward. And so you had the vampires essentially offering, another form of slavery, and slavery of self in your person, giving that into the collective. And you see that through a lot of horror movies. We don't think about it, but The Thing, you had assimilation to become one thing as you go through John Carpenter's classic horror movie. And so you can kind of think about that and think about control, think about that ultimate horror. I think everyone out here, let's imagine losing yourself, that you are no longer in control of who you are and what you're going to do and how you're going to manifest your movements and your destiny and your fate. And that's, that becomes not only horrific, but it is a heart, it's to mentally think through it and then to see it, it becomes, that's so.
It's very powerful, the assimilation leading to the loss of identity. That's why Get Out is probably the most horrifying movie I've ever seen. If I could take Sinners and Get Out and say, this is the African American male experience, I think I would be happy.
I think that like when he took off his bag, my sister-in-law, she's white, she's like, why did he take off his bag? He doesn't need to die, he's even taking it all off. But anyway. Yeah, question?
All right, the next question was, Remick wanted Sammy so that way he could bring back what was his history, bring back culture that he grew up in. Does this kind of make him a tragic villain because he misses his past?
No.
Very resounding that no.
I can
Yes.
explain?
Yeah.
No.
No. Why should what I want cause so much chaos and destruction?
Right.
That doesn't make him tragic. It makes me sad.
Selfish.
Yeah.
Selfish. Yeah.
It's a very selfish thing to take something from someone else.
Right.
And then the way that he did it, like just the kind of getting into everybody's minds. And like, I know the whole thing with Grace is very like people feel one way or the other about it, but it's like this man was using your personal secrets to try to lure you out. And then when that didn't work, he went for your child. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, they look at her as the villain, like, oh, she invited them in. But you can't tell me that if it was your child, that you would say, okay, you know what? I'll let her take her chances. I got to protect these people in here. No, we had this discussion when we talked about The Last of Us. And I was like, you know what? I understand that whole dilemma about, forsaking one soul for the sake of everybody else. But if it comes to my child, I don't give a damn about anybody else. I'm going to do what I need to do to save my child, And I think in that, it's like, again, he used those things to kind of seduce and try to do that, try to bring her out. But Grace, I think, was one of the strongest people there because she was the one who was like, okay, you know what? No, we're not going to do this. Her and Annie, both, They weren't really tempted by what he was offering.
It's been very trendy in media to have villains who are sympathetic. Villains, and we're supposed to identify with them and be okay with them. No, I'm not okay with him.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was intentional to be that way. For him to be so invasive into people's lives, like, it's not cool. I don't really care that you want your family back. They're gone. It's time to move on.
Yeah. And also the thing with Remick is like you're sitting here talking about what they did to you and the effect that it had. So why would you then turn around and do it to someone else just because? You know, it just makes no sense. So no, on that end, no, I wouldn't sympathize with
I mean, at that kind of that evangelism aspect too, that it was kind of like, come join us, we have cookies and a good time. It's just very like, and you had that feeling, and when people evangelize to you and you go into that, kind of relationship where you're there and they're trying to convince you to join them and you're countering, often those conversations can become personal. Like all of a sudden those conversations now turn to, oh, would you do this with your girlfriend or whatever? And it's like, well, hold on, why did you bring my girlfriend into all this? Like, you do have that movement where as you start to think and you start to critically think and question, then your next resort is, well, kind of the very surface arguments have failed. So let me try to dig a little deeper and see if I can really find a nerve and then find an opening. And that was that idea. And just from Grace welcoming in the vampires, I think also if she didn't do that, the story would have not been as interesting. So someone had to get pushed to the point. And I think the storytelling there was really clever, because you're right. What would you do for your child? And so it was, it was the move. Just come on in. We're going to take you down. We're going to kill you off.
And it's not like she invited them in and she was planning to, like, she was ready to fight.
Yeah.
She
was gearing up already.
Yeah.
She had reached her level.
Yeah.
It was like, nope.
Right.
And I thought with Remy, like, when he was trying to say, yeah, they used religion to, like, oppress my people too. And I was like, sat there and I was like, that means you're a very old vampire. You would have thought of more techniques to, like, turn these people instead of
He was just lazy.
All right, this question says, the line of the villain Remick that struck me most is, I want your songs and stories. This echoes something Delta Slim said earlier about white people living with blues but not the like it.
Right.
What does it mean to you to live in a country that continually consumes and regulates African Americans?
I mean, appropriation is real.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, people, I mean, especially when Delroy Lindo in this movie was so great, because while he was telling his story in the car, it's like you could see in his eyes that he wasn't just telling the story. He had transported himself back to relive it again, and you could see the pain in it, because it's true. It's like most people. The white man had them performing in front of him, but once they got paid, and the white man found out that they got paid, they took the guy and hung him and lied on him. So it's like, castrated him. So it's like, of course they don't want him to have they don't want to understand what's going on. They just want it. It's like there's something that they really like, but they don't really care about it. Well, it sounds good, cool, let's do it. It's just like a lot of other things.
I think Mike covered it.
Yeah, I think that pretty much.
That was a loaded question. I was like,
That was another question. For real though, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we want to get into a discussion on appropriation. I mean, there's a culture that wants but doesn't make, and they watch other people make it, and then they take it, and they either change it and call it their own, or they just call it their own from the beginning. It happens. That's another horrifying thing, that I'm a producer, but the other person, the consumer, is taking all of my stuff and they're relabeling it, or they're changing it and doing other stuff with it. Happens.
Still happening, yeah.
Yeah, it's happening now.
It's still there.
Love Country, Us, Get Out, and Not Sinners are all wonderful films. What do you hope for the next films?
Can you repeat that,
yeah, keep the mic. yelling the mic.
You know I know. Love country, us, Get Out, and Now Sinners are great movies. What do you hope next for Black horror?
What do we hope next? Sinners is gonna be hard to top.
Yeah.
And since Ryan Coogler has made it clear there will not be a sequel, I just want to throw it out there that I would love to see the Choctaw Vampire Hunter. I would love to see that. I don't know. That's hard.
I wouldn't mind seeing a real, true flip the script movie where white people experience everything that black people experience, like a true flip, a true script flip, like where he experiences slavery, experiences everything before the civil rights movement. He experiences everything now, where you're being gaslighted at every turn. Like just experiencing that in real time and seeing it and trying to get them to understand how it feels.
That would be eye-opening. That'd be scary.
Okay, on that note, I like the fact that Ryan Coogler bought all the costuming that was made for Blade. And so it's almost that time. And I wish I asked more questions, and I wish there was more questions to be asked, but we only have an hour. This would probably be like a 2-hour
I know.
discussion, but we don't have 2 hours. But I would like to thank our panelists and let everybody know where you're going to be at throughout the conference. Michael?
Next, I'm going back to the Marriott for a discussion on Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the cartoon that came out. And after that, I'm going to be in Sci-Fi Court at 10 o'clock.
I'm in several panels. For some reason, this is the only panel I'm on that's not about politics. I did a panel earlier today on political entry in genre media. But I'm also on the rise of the rebellion panel in Star Wars Track. You can find that, and also the fall of the empire in Star Wars Track. And also, I'm on another panel tomorrow. I forgot. They're all about politics. They're all the same. But you can find me on the Fandom Library podcast along with Mike.
So I will be on the Wednesday Returns Nevermore panel on Sunday. And you can keep up with me at Lisa Gets Lit on Instagram. I do a lot of fun stuff. I talk about TV, movies, all the things.
So for tomorrow, I am on 2 Outlander panels, one discussing the main show, one discussing the new prequel. I am also on a 20th anniversary Twilight panel, and I will be talking about The Walking Dead, the post-Rick era. There's a schedule of my panels for the rest of the weekend. There's also a QR code if you are interested in checking out our podcast. That information is up here.
Very cool.
Yeah, then tomorrow I have a fandom fusion where classroom meets imagination panel morning 11:30. Then I'll be doing a reading session and answer. So if folks want to hear me read out of the book or ask some other questions, that's tomorrow afternoon. Then Sunday on the writer's track, I'll be in a pantsing or plotting workshop. And then Monday, I'll be in the Enchanting Realms, Black Voices in Fantasy. So, and you can find the schedule on Instagram, Facebook. You can check out the podcast for the whole research, and if you enjoy kind of panel-like conversations, that's what we do on that. Thank you.
Now, on that note, I hope you all enjoy your con. If you want some free bags, we got some bags over here. Lisa doesn't have to say it. Hey, hold on.
Wait. We want to take a group photo. We're coming down. And we're going to take a group photo and then come up and get some sinners bags until they're not. Awesome.
Turn it off.